For those of you watching this on YouTube, there are 594 prior episodes of the show in audio-only format. Do please check those out. NHTE.net is the website. The audio format is there, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and lots of other platforms. Coming up on today's show...
I've always written straight from the heart. I've always written about, I would always write about whatever is going on in my head, things that I'm scared of, things that I'm insecure about. And each song it's like a peeking into my diary.
You can try to prove your worth to everyone else, everyone besides yourself. Try on their clothes.
Welcome to another new episode of Now Hear This Entertainment, featuring interviews with guests who are having success in entertainment, primarily music. I am Bruce Wozniak, talking to guests who are singers, songwriters, musicians, recording artists, and more from the worldwide music community. Get in touch with me by writing to podcast@nhte.net, or instead of email, you can DM me through the @NowHearThisEntertainment Instagram account. Joining me today on location here in Tampa, Florida, my guest is a singer, songwriter, guitar player currently working towards her next single release. She is one of the busiest performers in this area, having averaged 334 bookings a year over 2021, 2022, and 2023. In the lead up to this interview, she had back-to-back weeks of performing 6 out of 7 days. She has performed at notable venues and events, from the Hard Rock here in Tampa to the Bitter End in New York City to the House of Blues in Anaheim, California, where she also played at the massive NAMM Show. Plus, she has been featured at songwriters festivals along the way as well. Last September, she started a Songwriter Diaries vlog series that she has been publishing on her YouTube channel and will tell us about today. She was a guest on this show way back on episode 279. You've been hearing a song of hers called Back to You. Welcome back to Now Hear This Entertainment, Frankie Raye.
Hi. Good to be back. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is cool.
Thanks for having me.
We did the last one in person also, but we didn't have video.
There was a video. I know. I'm looking at the cameras like, where do I look? Or
So, Frankie, start us off by telling the audience all about the song of yours that was just playing during the intro called Back to You, especially since I was talking over it and they couldn't hear the lyrics.
Back to You is my latest single. I released it in October of 2024. The song, it's kind of right in the title, coming back to yourself. I feel like I got so caught up with trying to write a hit song and writing things that just didn't feel like they fit my personality and just trying to please other people and what other people thought I should be. And the song Back to You is just about coming back to yourself and staying true to yourself. And it sounds kind of cliche and cheesy, but, to thine own self be true. And that's what the song is about. And just kind of ignoring the people who try to change who you are inside.
But see, that's why I love doing this part of this show, is giving the guest a chance to explain the song, because I think what we do as music listeners is we see the title of a song and we tell ourselves what it's probably about. And so Back to You, people probably think, oh, it's someone who's going back to their partner. Maybe they broke up or whatever. And you're here to say, sometimes you got to come back to yourself.
Yeah. And I don't really write a lot of romance songs anyway. And I feel like a lot of people, they'll hear certain songs and they say, wow, that must have been a bad breakup for that song. And I'm like, actually, it's not about a breakup at all. It was about a friendship or just something more in general. But yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was Back to You inspired at a gig of yours by chance?
Not at a gig, but I played it. So I had these, I guess they're fans. I feel weird saying that word because I'm not famous or anything, but they had fans who would come to see me at one of my gigs, and I played the song Back to You, but I hadn't really finished the lyrics yet. So I was like, oh, I'll just, kind of play through a new song I'm working on. And I remember he's a really nice guy, but he kind of criticized it. He was just like, I don't know. I think you should write stuff more like Taylor Swift, You should write something more catchy. And I was kind of thinking but that's not really me. You know, I love Taylor Swift, nothing against her, but I was like, he was referring to her song, he wears short shorts, I wear, I don't know the lyrics, but he was saying, you should write something more like that. And I was just it kind of irked me a little bit, because I was like, I don't know, it's not really supposed to be about that. So I kind of tweaked the lyrics a little bit to staying true to yourself. So that is kind of what inspired it, but I had already been working on it.
But as we go through this conversation today, people are going to hear about how much time you do spend performing. And it's kind of interesting that even though you are largely playing cover songs, just the environment that you put yourself in does expose you to opportunities to, I'll say, get song ideas, maybe not so much get inspired. I'm disappointed we're not playing your song today, that I won't give it away, but that was clearly inspired by something that happened after a gig. Go ahead and tell the audience what I'm referring to.
Are we talking about Theodora?
Yeah.
I love that song. Yeah, I was at a gig, and I love it when people come to me after a gig and talk to me about the music. I think that's awesome. I love meeting new people. A lot of people will come up and say, oh, what kind of guitar is that? Or, you know, whatever. And this person, though, I was waiting for my check, and this person was just being like wildly inappropriate, saying just, I won't even say it on the podcast, just saying really rude things to me, really suggestive things. And I was trying to be the bigger person. I was like, I'm just going to ignore this person because I think he's had too much to drink. And he noticed that I was ignoring him, and he started getting angry at the fact that I was ignoring him. So I kind of just grabbed my bag. I was like, I'm just going to walk inside, mind my business, be the bigger person. And he's like shouting at me as I'm walking inside, like, hey, get back here. And it just really upset me, because I was like, you know, I'm here in this space and I'm minding my own business and I'm not talking to anyone, and you're just invading my space as if I'm obligated to, you know, take your advances or whatever.
I want to jump in for a minute because I think it's brilliant how you were in this moment.
Yeah.
You not only, you know, from a personal standpoint, handled yourself in a very professional way, like, I'm going to try to diffuse this.
Yeah.
But number two, the songwriter in you kicked in and said, there's a song idea here. And then number three, I mean, this is brilliant, audience, what Frankie did. She's an art history major, right? Not a music major. And so you drew from your art history background and finished the story from there.
Theodora is the wife of Justinian, an emperor in the Byzantine era. And so I remember learning about her. For some reason, she just stuck out to me. She's kind of like, I don't know, in my mind, one of the first women's rights activists. I mean, she did a lot, you know, during her time. And for some reason, it just popped in my head, Theodora. And I got this feeling of like women warrior, you know, kind of thing. And it was just, I don't know, I just put it all together. It was almost like it was all meant to be.
Women warrior rallying back against this guy who, present day, here he is, I'm at a gig, I'm trying to leave, and he's being inappropriate.
Yeah,
and so,
extremely
that's so
inappropriate.
Cool.
So it just came together.
That song has done really well, though, for you. I think that's your most streamed song on Spotify.
Is.
What is it? Have you been able to put your finger on why that song did so well? Because I think you said that like people have actually requested it at your gigs when you're primarily playing cover songs.
Yeah, that one gets requested a lot, and I'm not sure why. I think it's catchy, you know. It's odd when you listen to the chorus. Like, what is she talking about? Like Theodora in the days of the Byzantine. Like, what is she talking about? And I think that, I don't know. I think it's upbeat. It's catchy. Melodically, people kind of can hum it in there. They can sing it. It's not really too complicated. So I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I wonder what it is about that song. Maybe I should try to recreate that with another song.
Yeah, and if it was that easy, you'd have a whole album full of songs that catchy. We have a lot to cover today because it was 6 years ago this month that you were on this podcast. So we need to catch people up on what you've been up to since then, which, as they can tell from the intro, is a lot. One of the super cool highlights is that I mentioned in the intro, you have played at a really famous spot up in New York City, the Bitter End, not once, not twice, but actually 3 times now. And I think you're going back again later this year. Tell us all about the Bitter End and all these trips there and playing there.
So my aunt is friends with someone who works at the bitter end, and she shared a video of me playing guitar and singing. That person reached out to her and said, hey, is that your niece? I'd like to get her at the bitter end. And they do, once a month, they do songwriter circles. It's usually 4 or 5 songwriters. It's actually similar to the Pensacola Beach Songwriters Festival in that you're sitting on a stage and around with other songwriters. And she just invited me up there. So I went and I had fun and I talked to the owner and everything was great. And then they said, well, whenever you want to come back, just let us know. So now I kind of have this relationship with them where I just send them a message and say, hey, I'd like to come back to New York. And they say, okay, we have an opening in December, or whatever. So, and actually, there's a pizza place here in Florida in Safety Harbor called Nona Slice House. The owner of that pizza place just opened a location in New York City. And I had an idea, and I started talking to some of the other musicians who play at the Nona Slice House in Florida. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if we all went up there to visit the pizza shop, but also maybe play a show at the bitter end?
Wow.
So I reached out to the owner and he said, probably wouldn't make it happen this year, but next year definitely. And I said it'd be kind of like a Florida takeover show, like, Floridians, tropical, go to the Big Apple, and it'd be easy to sell tickets because the pizza shop is in New York City now. He has a location there, and he would sell tickets to customers.
So cool.
And
so cool.
I think it'd be fun.
And I love the way that story started because I think it gives hope to aspiring musicians that, it really happens that sometimes somebody's aunt sends a video to some person who sees the video and goes, I want to do something with this person.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't end there because you also, on one of those trips up to New York, you ended up on the Daily Show, which is kind of you never know what could happen when you're up in New York.
That was so much fun. I still can't believe that happened. I was there with another musician friend of mine, and we had checked out of the hotel, so I'm walking around with my guitar on my back, and we're just kind of killing time before our flight, and a producer walks up to me. She says, hey, I'm one of the producers for Comedy Central Daily Show. She's like, we're doing a segment with Michelle Wolf where we're going to just talk to women on the street, and would you like to be a part of it? And I said, absolutely, because why would you say no to something like
Right.
that? I remember I was very tired, but I said yes anyway. And they said, oh, you have a guitar, so why don't you play a song? They were like, well, I don't know if we'll be able to put the song in there, but we'll get some footage of you playing your guitar. And as I'm setting everything up, as I'm standing there waiting for them to get the camera set up, Jon Stewart himself walks up and says hello to the producers, and of course he knows them all, and he's like, oh, good to see you guys. I didn't know you guys were filming out here today. Oh, okay. See you later. And I'm just standing there, and Jon Stewart's right in front of me. I'm in New York City. I'm about to be on Comedy Central Daily Show, like a show that I watched since it came out when I was a kid, and I'm like, what is happening? It was the best experience. That was insane.
And there's a cool transition because if people checking out this episode of Now Hear This Entertainment want to see some of your experiences up in New York City, let's talk about Songwriter Diaries, the vlog series that you started 9 months ago that's available on your YouTube channel. Season 1 has 9 videos in its playlist, and Season 2 has 8. Share with the audience all about that series, that project.
I was inspired by a guest who you had on the podcast, Jessie Ritter. I met her at the Pensacola Beach Songwriters Festival a couple years ago, and she had this really cool thing that she did with Country Road TV, and it was a vlog series. It was her filming it, and I don't know who did the editing or whatever, but I was like, I really want to do that. So I sent her a message, and I said, just curious, how did that come about? And she told me about it, but she was really supportive, and she said, you could do one too, just film yourself, and so I kind of was like, okay. So I just started. It was really just a personal passion project. I really didn't have plans to monetize it. I didn't have plans to make it this big official thing, but it was just something to kind of keep myself occupied, something different. And I ended up loving it. I love video editing. I love, being creative with the intros, and I even have rolling credits at the end, and I had so much fun doing it. And I also liked the fact that I could interview other songwriters in the Tampa Bay area, and I started doing that. I started going out to, a friend's gig, and I'd film them, and I'd say, hey, can I ask you a couple questions? And I would, and then it's cool because, people obviously if you're a musician in Florida, that you already probably know the places where I play, but if you're in Nebraska or something and you want to watch it, it's like, wow. Because at first I was like, no one's going to want to see, me filming walking around Clearwater Beach. But I was like, well, why not? If you don't live on the beach, it's kind of a cool thing to see. So it was just fun. I liked it.
You started to answer some of the follow-up questions that I told myself to ask you, but let's verify this.
Yeah.
So you are doing the video editing yourself?
Yes.
What software do you use?
CapCut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it all shot with your phone? Do you do everything by yourself? Is there ever anybody that, my boyfriend will sometimes shoot a little bit for me, or sometimes my drummer, or is it, no, it's just always me and it's always my phone?
It's pretty much always me. There's one clip in the intro of season 1 where I'm on a swing, and then that one, my boyfriend Brandon took that footage. But I think most of it has been me.
And it's all captured by you. You're not going out and getting some stock footage, some royalty-free footage that you're pulling from. Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It's all just me filming it and editing, and sometimes CapCut will have license-free music that you can put in the background. Like I know there's one episode where I'm hiking and I kind of put this license-free music in there. And I think that's mostly because I had already put all of my own music on there. I was like, I need to start releasing some more music that I can put in this vlog. But yeah.
But as you said, though, it's the creative in you that goes, wait a minute, this is actually fun. Like, obviously music is where my heart is, but this is kind of an extension of me being a creator.
It's fun. And I've even started making videos on my Instagram and Facebook. Like yesterday I just put up a reel of like a day in the life video where I use the same software. I'm like, I could do so much stuff with this, and it's been fun. It's to kind of just something different. I love writing music, but sometimes you need to kind of kick yourself to do something different.
Folks, I'm not going to lie, this segment is getting tougher and tougher to do each week. What was supposed to be a trip in July and a trip in August should have both already been booked by now, and yet I have run into many obstacles. It's just getting gosh darn ridiculous at this point. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I do want to meet you somewhere out on the road at some point to say a personal hello and a face-to-face thank you for listening to Now Hear This Entertainment. It means a lot to me that you spend pretty close to an hour with me each week, and I would love to express my gratitude in person. So keep listening to the podcast. Follow the @Now Hear This Entertainment Instagram account. Subscribe for free to the weekly e-newsletter. As soon as I have dates and locations for where I will be, you will know about it. Frankie, as if you're not busy enough, something that I did not mention back in the intro is your B-Sides the Point project, which, so common in this day and age, you do through a home recording setup. Tell us all about that. What is B-Sides the Point? And then also talk about the actual production aspect as well.
So B-Sides the Point is actually a project that my boyfriend Brandon and I started during the pandemic. We didn't have a title for it, but we're at home. We both have laptops with GarageBand. We thought, all right, we can't go anywhere. Let's just start recording some music. And, it was bizarre stuff. I mean, Brandon got this keyboard and we just started making these weird tracks. There was none of it really made sense. It wasn't like there's, a verse, a chorus, a verse, a bridge. We were like, let's just get a bunch of ideas out there. But then stuff started opening up and we got busy and we kind of scrapped it, and then I started releasing some of my own music. And I don't know, recently we were going back, listening through some of that stuff, and we're like, some of this is really good. And we thought, let's just maybe this year start working on it and have something to release maybe by the end of the year or early next year. And the goal is not to make it sound like a hit song that's catchy or, and I'm still working on that stuff for my Frankie Raye brand, but this is going to be something completely different. We already have a few songs finished, and it's cool because I'm not playing any of the instruments. Oh. Brandon is doing all the instruments. He lays down a beat and then he adds bass and then he goes in with the keys because he's a really talented musician. He knows theory really well. And then he starts adding stuff on the keyboards, and then he'll take my guitar and add some stuff, and I'm responsible for melodies and lyrics. And it's been so nice just focusing on that. But it's been a challenge, a good challenge, because I'm so used to writing songs in an organized way. I'm like, well, here's my verse, here's my chorus, here's my bridge, and then I fill in the lyrics, or sometimes I'll have lyrics first. But this is different because Brandon isn't that kind of a songwriter. He's very like, let's just lay some stuff down and see what happens. So I'll be listening to some of the songs and I'm like, well, I don't know what I would write to this because it's not an organized song. But it's been a good challenge. I'm like, well, you know what? There's a lot of songs that I hear that aren't organized, and this will be a good writing exercise for me.
Yeah, get you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But there's also an interesting, I don't know if I'd call it contradiction, but you talked about, it being kind of off-brand from what people are used to from Frankie Raye. And you think about that and you go, well, that's kind of what B-sides were back in the old days. You'd buy this 45 and the song you really wanted to hear was on A side, and the song on the second side, it's like, I don't know, whatever. It's really clever that you and he are calling it B-sides, the point. But what's going to happen, I know inevitably, is the artist in you is going to say, oh, but if this is kind of just like, like that, then you're going to go, oh, well, wait a minute.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be a hit. And I think that kind of comes back to the song Back to You.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why does it have to be a hit? Why can't it just be like we're exploring a different part of our artistry?
Yeah.
And we're learning the software, we're creating in a whole new way, and the stuff doesn't sound terrible. Like it's pretty neat. I don't mind putting my name to it and releasing it.
Yeah, I know. That's really the whole point. I mean, it's besides the point of what I usually do. So it's been fun working with that. And when I was talking about the challenging part, someone told me a while ago, when you're talking about artists, they're either architects or they're gardeners. And I feel like as an artist, I'm more of an architect. I like to have an outline, and then I like to build on that, and it's very organized. And then the gardeners, that's the kind of artist that Brandon is. They just kind of throw the seeds down and wait for it to grow, wait for something to appear. And I keep thinking about that as we're working on this project. I'm like, you've got the architect, me, and then he's the gardener, just throw the seeds down. And yeah, it's been fun. It's been challenging.
But if you think of the expression opposites attract,
never
mind as boyfriend, girlfriend, but obviously there's some nice synergy in the middle of all that.
Yeah.
Where you got to have the planner and you got to have the spontaneous person, and you end up having a good time.
Absolutely.
Doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's yin and yang.
As I started into that last question, I said, as if you're not busy enough. As much as you do get to out-of-town performances, you play here in the greater Tampa Bay area a lot. And I would love if you would share, especially for the people in the audience who are aspiring performers, about the loyalty that you have to the venues you play at regularly, the importance of that, meaning not taking them for granted, not leaving them hanging or having someone sub in for you too much. Just tell us about that loyalty that you've placed such a priority on with those venues.
A lot of these places I've been playing at for so long that I honestly, they feel like family, like a type of, there's a few places that I walk into where I'm there every single week, and I walk in and it's the same regulars, it's the same bartenders. It's like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. Like, I walk in and it's just, some of these venues are like a home away from home for me. I know all their names, I know their families, I've kind of grown up with them in a way, because some of these venues I've been playing at since before the pandemic, since when I first started playing music, and they've watched me grow. So it's just nice to have that family. I used to be a very shy, reserved person. I had a few really close friends, but music has gotten me to the point where I have just such a great support system. I get to go hang out with my friends and family every night, and that's why I'm so loyal to them.
And they conversely know everything about Frankie. You dodged a bullet. You had a vocal hemorrhage, and that's a time when those people are going to go, "Come on, we love you. Like, don't worry about us. Like, we'll get someone else, and we're not going to forget you when you're okay."
Yeah, that was actually left over from an illness I had in September. I had pneumonia. And it was my fault. I went back to work way too quickly. I should have rested more. So it ended up, I was being a little dramatic. I thought it was a full-blown hemorrhage. When I went back to the ENT, he said, well, nothing. He said, you were close to hemorrhaging, but you just had a lot of really bad swelling and nodes. But the nodes were small enough to where he said, if you just do, 30 days of complete vocal rest, you should be fine. So I did. I was like 30 days. And it was fine. My venues they understood. They said, you need to rest because we want you back. So.
But, I want to go back to the original question, because some people might say, well, that's a silly question. Of course, why wouldn't she be loyal? And I'm sure, without naming names, you probably know plenty of musicians who do take their venues for granted and don't have that commitment, that loyalty, that, that bond that you described, and it probably ends up coming back to haunt them at some point.
Oh, yeah. There are some who, there's a few musicians who I feel like they maybe are a little bitter that they didn't make it, in a sense, and be famous or whatever, and they kind of take it out on the venues, like, I'm too good to be here, and there have been some venues that kind of treat the musicians like they just don't matter. Luckily, I don't really play at any of those places, and if I do, it's like a one-off, and I'm there, and I kind of make a mental note, like, I don't think I'm gonna play here again, I'll make sure to not book anything here. But there are some musicians who I think they deserve more. You get the sense where it's like, do you know how cool this job is? Like, how could you be bitter about any of this?
Yeah, it sounds like what you're describing is they go in with the attitude of, hey, venue, I'm doing you a favor by coming and bringing my talent to you, where it's the opposite of, no, they're doing you a favor by giving you a place to play. You could be sitting at home on the couch tonight.
Yeah, exactly, giving you a job and paying you. And I pay my bills in the best way possible. I love this job,
And that's why for someone to hear 30 days of vocal rest, they go, well, if that's what it takes, they're like, no, you have to understand, this is her job. This is how she makes her money, with her voice, with her guitar playing, with her performing. You can't say, take 30 days off, don't talk, just vocal rest. And it's like, I have to follow doctor's orders, but this is my livelihood.
Exactly.
This is my full-time job.
It really is. You have to remind yourself it's a job. It takes planning and taking care of yourself, and that's why I've been, starting back at the gym so I could keep my immune system healthy, because working out is good for you. And I'm like, I need to just a full body care, vitamins, eating healthy, going to the gym, and that's been very important to me since that happened.
Different from all the venues around here, I mentioned that it was 6 years ago this month that you were first on Now Hear This Entertainment. You have played twice in the Florida Panhandle. You mentioned it at the Pensacola Beach Songwriters Festival since you were last on the podcast, including this past October. Talk about all that represents, meaning leaving the Tampa Bay area, performing only original songs, being in front of audiences with no regulars, getting to connect with other songwriters, and so on.
All of that is just all those reasons you listed are the reasons why I love doing the Songwriters Festivals, because it gives me a chance to kind of explore a new area, play at some new venues where I've never played before, meet songwriters from all over the country, Grammy-winning songwriters. When I play at those festivals, it's just so cool to hear a song that I actually know, and you're like, wait a second, that's a cover. No, it's not. They actually wrote the song. And in fact, the last time I went to the Pensacola Beach Songwriters Festival, it was right before the hurricanes were hitting the Tampa Bay area, and I remember I was up there and I was talking to some of the owners, and I was like, I might be coming up here soon to live if Clearwater Beach gets wiped out. And they were so nice. There was one owner at a place, and he's like, oh, well, just send me a message and let me know if you want to start playing here or whatever. And it's just nice to have that community, and exploring a new area, and everyone at the Songwriters Festival, the audience is just so supportive, blows me away. I'm playing all original songs. Many of them they probably haven't even heard before, but they just act like it's the best thing they've ever heard. It's such a great experience.
I'm joined today on location in Tampa, Florida by singer, songwriter, guitar player Frankie Raye. Do visit her official website at frankieraye.com. I will have a link to it on the show page for this episode on my podcast website, NHTE.net. Her music is on all the streaming sites and digital music retailers. On the homepage of her website, you will see links for Apple Music and Spotify, plus look for the links there for social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X. As you are hearing, Frankie is almost always performing live. On frankieraye.com, you can tap or click where it says live show schedule to see where and when you can go see her perform in person. While you are being interactive, on my podcast website, NHTE.net, tap or click the yellow button that says Buy Me a Coffee. That will take you to a page where you can do exactly what it sounds like. I might call it a virtual cup of coffee, or 3 or 5, but that platform is a fun way for you to send your support, your thanks for what I'm doing each week here on the show. You can post a message for not only me and everyone who visits to see, but I will write back on there, as you will see that I have done with everyone who has bought me coffees through there up to this point. By the way, this is not a sponsor. It's not affiliated with any brand or chain. Again, simply head to my podcast website, NHTE.net, and then tap or click on the bright yellow Buy Me a Coffee button, and then we can raise our virtual mugs and have a toast. Frankie, before all that, you were telling us about your experiences playing at the Pensacola Beach Songwriters Festival. Similarly, share with us about having been out west at the NAMM Show, and it's a whole different trip. 3 hours earlier than where you live, performing in front of a lot of industry people, getting to see what's out there gear-wise, networking with others who are in the business as opposed to talking to tourists or local Florida residents, and then, of course, taking in the sights and sounds of Southern California.
Man, that whole trip, every time I go, it's just a whirlwind. I mean, you're in this giant convention center and you just have all these instruments going off at the same time, and you have to kind of like focus on what you want to see. And, I go there with my best friend and my drummer, Frank Dancy. He's the one actually who got me in there the first few times that I went. And it's just, I mean, it's the same thing. It's a fun way to just kind of get away from home for a little bit, and it's chaotic and it's a whirlwind. I don't know how else to describe it. Performing in front of industry professionals is definitely scary, but it's fun at the same time. It's, when I'm playing on the beach, it's all fun and games, but it seems like you forget how serious the music business is. And when you go to places like NAMM, you kind of reminder like, this stuff is a big deal, playing out there and meeting these industry professionals and getting endorsements. I was able to secure endorsements from G7th and Mogami cables, which are products that I love and that I use. And it's kind of crazy. I've always used those products, but to meet, one of the the CEOs of the company and for him to put me on his website, I'm like, it's crazy. You forget how serious it is when you're in little Clearwater Beach, Florida, playing on the beach.
No, but I'm glad you brought that up, because I think for the average music listener, right, you don't think about, you see someone performing and aren't they just focused on the lyrics and the chords that they're performing on stage? Yeah. And you're saying that, and I'm sure this is the case at the bitter end too.
Yeah.
Like, hold on, this is a whole different ballgame here. Performing at the NAMM Show, performing at a vaunted music place like the bitter end.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot more going on in my mind right now other than chords and lyrics.
Absolutely. It's way more than just playing some covers, on the beach. I don't know, it's a good reminder that you need to stay focused and keep your eye on the prize, and not just be lazy and be like, oh, I'm just a beach musician,
You don't know this, but as you said this, your body went like that, and that's probably something that you do is you go, okay, wait a minute, there's music people in the audience, like I can't just mail this one in and put it on autopilot.
Exactly.
Not to say that you're doing that at your venues here, but you say, this is literally one of those places where you never know who's in the audience, and someone might come up and say, hey, I really like what you're doing. I got to get back over to my booth. We're over in the South Hall. Make sure you come and visit us because, and all of a sudden someone has an opportunity for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Back in the intro, I mentioned the crazy number of bookings that you always have, which brings up the question, how do you handle being booked to perform so much? Both, how are you getting so many gigs, but also, how do you physically and mentally handle constantly playing, especially sometimes you pull a double?
Yeah, I wish I had an answer for that. The biggest thing last year and this year that I noticed, it's been a lot easier for me to handle all of this since I've been taking better care of myself. Going to the gym, eating right, making sure to drink at least 2 to 3 liters of water a day, and just taking my vitamins. And, because there were some days where I would just be so hot outside and I'd be so tired and I'm like, oh, I just feel like, I feel awful. Like, I just don't want to be here today. And I've noticed that it's a whole your whole lifestyle has to be in check and in place in order for you to sustain the momentum and to keep going. It's a lot. I mean, now I've played in enough places to where I kind of have people reaching out to me. Like, there's a few places that have reached out to me just in the past couple weeks. And I think that's mostly just from them maybe seeing my name at all these other places. And they say, oh, well, we have music. We'd like to have you here. And at first, the first couple years that I was doing this, it was hard to get bookings just because no one really knew who I was. But it gets easier each year. So, yeah,
but
you just have to be
some booking agencies too,
yeah.
Correct?
Oh, yeah,
and the tip there, I believe you said, is that you make sure that you aren't exclusive with one booking agent, because then it kind of closes off opportunities that others might have that they're connected to, that the one you're committing to is not. Yeah.
I mean, I work with quite a few different agencies, but I also just know a lot of managers at places. I was at a place last night and the owner was there and he's seen me before and he's like, oh, if you have any dates, send them over.
Wow.
It's like, oh, okay. I don't really have any openings, but maybe, now I know, like, okay, that's a place where I could play.
But that's a good lesson though, so that up-and-coming musicians don't say, if I get myself aligned with some booking agents, then I can just sit back and put my feet up and wait for the phone to ring. Like, no, you still want to.
You gotta hustle. Yeah, you still have to hustle. You still have to make sure you're keeping quality videos up on your website and social media. Got to have high resolution images.
Well, but the point being that if you close yourself off from, I don't need to talk to the manager at this place, I have booking agents. Well, why wouldn't you? You might go and talk to them and they go, oh, yeah. You want to perform next week Friday? We just had someone cancel. Or we're booked for the next 2 months, but I'll put you on after that.
Yeah.
If you don't speak up, you're going to leave money on the table, literally, because you're going to pass up, what maybe some of the booking agents, there's going to be some venues that are going to fall between the cracks that don't use booking agents.
Absolutely. And those managers and owners, they have so much to think about. They're thinking about money and sales and their employees. And they've got so much on their plate. They don't always have the bandwidth to kind of say like, oh, let me reach out to this musician specifically to see if she could play here. It's like you kind of have to, and whenever I do try to find bookings, I send them the dates that I have open. I say, hey, I'm open this date. And if they don't have anything, they'll put me on. You kind of have to help them do the work because they've got so much on their plate.
And I want to tell a story here that ties together a couple of the things that Frankie talked about. In January of this year, when I was at the NAMM Show, I interviewed Brian Grilly, and Brian was talking about being loyal to his venues, right? And how he got the word from NAMM, hey, you've been selected to play, but as Frankie can tell you, you still have to accept it. You still have to write them back and say, okay, yes, I would like to accept this, please schedule me. And Brian got this email, and he started to fret that, gosh, I live in Virginia, like it's $500 for a plane ticket alone, never mind where am I going to stay, meals, all that stuff. And he was talking to the owner of one of the venues that he plays at regularly and went up on stage and played, took a break, came and, hey, I just want to say goodbye to you guys in case I don't see you, going back up for my next set. And they slid $500 across the table and said, Brian, go to the NAMM Show. This is too big, don't pass this up. So that loyalty, you never know where it's going to get you. And for a venue owner to say, this is too important for the original music that you're doing, that's, I just put a price tag on it, but it's really priceless.
Yeah,
and I'm
really
sure
is.
when you tell them, they're probably thrilled for you. That's so exciting. You're going out to California or to New York City.
Yep. Oh, definitely. And that's why, again, with being loyal to venues, that pizza place that I was talking about earlier, that's a place where I play once a month. I've been playing there since they opened, and now they have this location in New York City. And I'm like, well, boom, there's another excuse to go up to New York City. I could play at that location too.
And I'll tell you what, myself being a local resident and anyone who's listening to this episode or watching this episode and hearing you talk so favorably about them, we're all going to go, I should find out where this Nona Slice place is and go check out their food. And, maybe when Frankie was playing there, but maybe not, because you're saying this is so important, this relationship, that I'll happily recommend people to go eat at Nona Slice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's the best pizza if you're listening. If you're in Safety Harbor, Florida, it is the best pizza.
I've mentioned a couple of times that it was June 2019 when you were first on this podcast. what has changed since you were on the show 6 years ago? Writing style, guitar technique, changes vocally, influences, anything maybe you've opted out of or maybe opted into?
I think when you said vocally, I kind of, that really struck a chord with me, because I've definitely changed my singing style a lot. When the first few years when I started gigging, I was kind of relying on my theater background, because I was always a musical theater person in high school and throughout college. So I was singing in a style that was very theatrical, music theater, loud, heavy vibrato. But I've really scaled that back. I've tried to become more mellow, a little bit softer, just partially because it's easier on my voice than just yelling all the time. But I don't know, it also, because there are certain songs where I'll, belt out a note or something, and I notice, since I'm not always belting, people notice more when I do. People are like, oh, she's really good, and so I've changed my vocal style. Songwriting, I feel like songwriting's always growing, but I've always written straight from the heart. I've always written about, I would always write about whatever is going on in my head, things that I'm scared of, things that I'm insecure about. And each song it's like a peeking into my diary, and that hasn't changed. That's been the same. I've also been more selective with venues. I think for the first few years I was just trying to play everywhere all the time, and I've definitely learned to kind of quality, not quantity, I guess. I'm finding more venues where I feel comfortable. If it's a place where I don't feel comfortable, then I won't book any shows there, which that used to not be the case. I was like, well, a gig's a gig, But now I've been doing it for so long, and I know so many places where I can be a little bit more picky, I guess.
Well, and because you've been at it so long, you've met more and more and more people, and so now your network is bigger, where you can check someone out. For those listening, I'm holding up air quotes, meaning you go to a fellow musician that you've met in the Tampa Bay community over the years, and you can say, hey, I'm thinking of playing over at such and such. You know anything about that? And if they say, oh gosh, you don't want to play there, now all those years are paying off, because you're going, wow, I'm glad I've met this person, that they're able to tell me not to waste my time performing
definitely,
over there.
And places always shut down, but new places always open up, and it's just something that just keeps growing. And I've also learned to I used to be, very upset if a place canceled, or if I got rained out, I would get nervous, like, oh no, it's okay, or if a place shut down, I would act like, oh no, I just lost one of my jobs. But now a new place will always open up. There will always, especially in this area, I'm much more calm about the business side of it.
As you started into your answer, you were talking about some of the singing, the voice changes that you made. Before we started recording, you were saying certain songs are going to be performed by you on a very, very case-by-case basis, like Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
Is that something was there something that took place over a period of time that was a teaching moment for you, where you finally decided, okay, certain songs I can't? Well, how did you come to that decision?
Just feeling vocal fatigue after singing certain songs. And, it's I feel like I always should have been like that. Like the Janis Joplin, for example, I did it because I just assumed everyone liked it, which Bobby McGee's a great song, and I love Janis Joplin, but I was like, if someone really wants to hear it, they can ask me for it, because I always say, like, oh, if you have any requests, let me know. And just feeling vocal fatigue, I was like, I can't kill myself anymore. I'm just going to stick with my mid-range songs. And I used to always get asked to turn down my volume all the time. It seemed like every single gig, someone's like, hey, can you turn it down a little bit? And I used to kind of take it personally, but now I realize, like, no, it's because you were screaming Janis Joplin in their ears when they're trying to eat, know? So I'm like, I've learned to kind of just tone it down, and I'm more okay with being in the background. Because a lot of times, people are there to just eat, and the music's there, and that's cool, and but I kind of used to treat every gig like it was a Frankie Raye concert. And you got to kind of understand that these people, maybe they're at the beach all day, they're tired, their kids are cranky, and they just want to get some food and get out, and you don't want to disturb their peace. So
if you put too much emphasis on they got to throw something in my tip jar, or they need to follow me on Spotify, or they need to follow me, subscribe to my YouTube channel, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a lesson in manage your expectations.
Yeah, I've seen musicians that if no one claps, they'll say something like, "Come on, guys, clap, clap," and then I'll see people with their fork and knife, and then they're like, "Oh, okay," and then they have to put their stuff down, and then you can tell that they're like, it doesn't mean that they don't like you. It's nothing personal. Yeah. It's just it's 100 degrees outside, and we're sitting outside, and they're hungry, and they want to finish their meal so they could go home, and it could be a bunch of different things.
You mentioned in there about taking requests. I know you can't speak for all the performers out there, so just speaking for your own experience, in June of 2025, and again, this kind of morphs from everything you just described. Where have you come to in terms of people requesting things? I will say I'm personally turned off when I'm at a place like that and I see a performer and their whole song is in their tablet or their phone. And it's like, if you got a request and you don't know the song, I'd rather you just tell me I don't know that instead of staring at your tablet the whole time. But where are you in June of 2025 with requests?
I agree with you. I don't like to have my face in the tablet the whole time. I actually don't really use it. I have my phone stand, and my phone is there just for security reasons, I guess. But I do take requests, and I always say if I know it well enough, because there are some songs that I could sing through with no problem from memory, but I might not know the chords. So then I'll look up the chords really quick, and I'm like, oh, that's only 3 chords. That's really easy. So then it's like I don't have to keep my face in the phone at all, because I don't know. It's like, what's one that I recently... Oh, someone wanted Can't You See by Marshall Tucker Band, which I've heard that a million times. For some reason, I've never played it. But I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, that's 3 chords, and I basically know it. So... I was able to do it, but now I have a new song on my repertoire, that I never did before. So,
but you're saying that there will be times when someone will approach, they'll give you a request, and you say, I'm sorry, I just really don't know that song well enough
or I'll look it up, and I'll be like, I don't remember how that melody part goes, so then I just say no. I only say yes to requests if I could do it really well, if I'm confident enough. But there are a lot of songs where I'm just like, nah, I can't do that one.
There was an interview you did recently that I'd like to hop on as far as something you said in it for the benefit of my audience. It's easy for people to hear about playing in Pensacola Beach and Southern California and up in New York City, not to mention the places at the beach here in Tampa Bay, and think, wow, that doesn't sound too hard to take. Yet, there is the struggle of being an independent musician insofar as, hey, this is my job. I might be background music to some people, but the driving, the load in, needing food, needing breaks, the load out, the late hours, it's real, and it can get tough when you have venues cancel on you last minute or treat you like you're just, a part of the checklist. Yeah,
it is. It's a job just like anything else. You have to, it's a great job and I love it, but that doesn't mean it comes without any kind of struggle or frustrations, A few weeks ago, I literally had to pull over because it was raining so hard that I couldn't even see where I was going. And I still had an hour left to go at this place. And I'm like, last thing I want to do is drive through a hurricane right now. That's what it felt like. I felt like I was in a hurricane. And then you get there and it's raining and you're like, well, great. Now how am I going to get my equipment inside of the building? Because it's, and then you have to sit there and then you wait and then... You contact a manager and or I'll text them and say, hey, I'm outside, but it's raining, but they're busy and they're not gonna, it's just, there's a lot, especially this time of year with the rain. There are some venues where I play outside and I'm just constantly looking at the radar, and a lot of times it'll rain, it's not even on the radar, and then you have to think about your gear. You have to spend a lot of money to get gear that sounds, good enough. I mean, when I first started, I bought, really cheap secondhand gear, but it didn't sound that good because it was old and dusty, and it's just like a business, like anything else. You have to spend money to make money.
But that's the part that I think you're hoping that the venues will see, because if one of their cooks calls out, they're all up in arms and they go, well, let's see if so-and-so can get in. We got to get somebody in here, and if things are going downhill and they say, just tell Frankie Raye that we're just not going to do music. It's like, wait. That's totally different from just calling in another cook. Like now,
Yeah.
they've, sorry, this is a poor choice of words, but now they've taken food off your table.
Yeah, exactly. And there are venues that just randomly close down. There was one a few weeks ago that this lady really wanted to book my band, and she gave us her card, and we were getting something on the books, and then I looked him up again. I was like, I wonder whatever. I haven't heard back from that lady. They shut down. They closed down. So it's like, it's a good thing I didn't have a bunch of dates there that I was relying on to pay bills, because they just randomly closed down, and that happens all the time.
But see, that's an interesting finance lesson for anyone watching or listening to this episode, that don't spend the money that you don't have yet. You might have all these bookings on the calendar, but as crazy as it sounds, don't sit there and tell yourself, no one's going to cancel on me. You've been doing this for so long, you've probably seen it all, where you would be surprised at the reasons I get of why they're canceling me.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah, a lot of times they won't even tell you. You could drive there, and then they're like, oh, or there's someone else there playing, and then there's a double booking, and then it's like, okay, well, it's something that is a part of the job, and you have to accept it. And if you can't accept it, then I would find another job. Yeah.
I love that you make sure that you play original songs at gigs that want you to do primarily cover songs. Sadly, we are in the home stretch here, and we did not talk enough for my taste about your original music. So tell us about the new song that you're writing. What's it about? What stage is it at? Pre-production, etc. When are you looking to release it? Who are you working with on it? What's the title? Whatever details that you can disclose at this point.
It's actually a song that's going to be on B-Sides The Point. And I really think I want to release it as a single. And it's kind of talking about... I didn't want to get political in the song, but I did want to talk about how everyone now, it just seems like everyone's really on edge. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and I feel like everyone's really on edge. And I've noticed when I'm scrolling through social media, I guess it shows up in my algorithm, a lot of nostalgia pages about the 90s and the 80s, and don't you wish we could go back to when we were kids? And it's about that. It's kind of wanting to go back to a simpler time in your life, and I feel like everyone can relate to that. And it's going to be called Home Again. So I want to go home again, that's kind of what it's about.
Do you remember when you first got inspired to write this? Do you remember where you were sitting down and writing it? Paint a picture for us of this song developing over time.
It's kind of been an idea that I've been thinking about really since the pandemic, because I feel like everything just kind of got really stressful. I mean, obviously it was stressful during the pandemic, but since then, I just feel like as a society, we're kind of just really on edge, and everyone seems to be shouting, but no one's listening. And it's just something that I've been seeing, and again, on my algorithm, I see a lot of nostalgia pages of people saying, like, point of view, it's the summer of 96, and it's all these, like, serene pictures of, like, a childhood home and, toys, and I was like, I just feel like everyone has this longing to just go back to a simpler time, and so that's when I really started. It's kind of been growing over the past few years, just this idea in the back of my head. And
will this be a ballad, mid-tempo, up-tempo? What
mid-tempo. Probably up-tempo. I kind of want to speed it up a little bit, yeah.
Which is always nice, because I think when a songwriter can take what could potentially be heavy subject matter and not turn it into this depressing ballad, it's a nice art to say, even though it's a fairly heavy topic, a deep observation, we can still pick it up a little
definitely.
bit.
Yeah, I don't want it to make people cry or anything. I do, because I always kind of have a little bit of, like, I don't know, tongue-in-cheek humor sometimes in my songs, a little bit of sarcasm, because I'm kind of a goofy, quirky person, and I that shows in my music a lot. I'll be talking about something serious, but it's also like, oh, that's funny. I'm just used to laughing at stuff, I guess.
Like Theodora, having this guy who's really making the end of your night miserable, and all of a sudden saying, I'm going to turn this into something from history.
Yeah, because if you can't laugh at it, I think everyone can find humor.
Well, and we've all as a society become so conscious of the importance of mental health that it's very easy to let all this stuff weigh on you and get you down, or you can say, all right, look, this isn't really my favorite moment of the day, but
Yeah.
let me try to laugh it off somehow.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just have to, are you alive? Are your feet on the ground? You have air in your lungs? Then I think you could do anything.
Yeah, I
it'll
always
be okay.
say, food on my table, clothes on my back, roof over my head.
Yes.
I'm doing pretty good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe in that.
We're going to close with another one of Frankie's original songs, one called Foot in Mouth. Before I let you go and we play that track, share with the audience all about this one first, if you would, please.
This one came about mostly just being frustrated with, I guess, the music industry as a whole, and thinking that I should be farther along in my career, or thinking that my songs weren't good enough and I needed to change who I was. It's kind of similar to Back to You, about, coming back to yourself. But sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of waiting for something to happen, but I don't know if it's going to happen, and I don't know if I'm ever going to find this massive success. And sometimes I'm just kind of feel like I'm twiddling my thumbs, like, am I wasting my time? But the song is saying, like, no, you're not wasting your time. Doing it is worth it, no matter what the outcome is, because it's what you love to do, and it's in my bones, it's in my blood, being a musician. So that in itself is success. I'm a gigging musician, but I still think I'm successful.
But you've also told me that you have a lot of, and I guess this is sort of a backhanded compliment, you have a lot of people that come up to you at your gigs and they say, why aren't you famous? Or why aren't you on The Voice? Or why aren't you on American Idol?
Yeah.
And they mean it in a complimentary way, but it is kind of that moment of, well, why can't this be my success if I'm happy with what I'm doing?
Yeah, I'm paying my bills. Everyone has a job, everyone from the coffee shop owner to the barista. I mean, everyone has an important job to do to pay the bills, and that's success. If you're making a living off of it, that's success,
And let's face it, you and I can both sit here and talk about all kinds of people who have been on The Voice, who have been on American Idol, who have been on America's Got Talent, who have been on The X Factor. Where are they now?
Yeah.
So for people to come up to you and say, why aren't you famous? Why aren't you on those shows? Well, just because I go on those shows isn't going to rocket me to Sabrina Carpenter status, where I'm a household name.
I know someone who was on those shows and he got pretty far, but he wrote some songs and the label scrapped them. There were songs that he wrote, but he lost all the rights to them, and they scrapped it. His album never released, and now he's gigging around. I think he lives in Orlando area now, but he's gigging around up there, and he has all these songs that he's not even allowed to release on his own because the label was like, never mind, we don't think, there's no money in this. So, but he's like, well, they're my songs, I wrote them, but they own the rights to it. And he got pretty far on The Voice, and we had a conversation about that a few years ago, and he's like, I don't know, man, it's I wouldn't go on the show. It's not like, not to criticize it, because I do like the show.
So if you're someone who goes to one of Frankie's shows, go up to her at the end, tell her she's amazing, show her your phone and say, I just started following you on Spotify, or I just subscribed to your YouTube channel, or something like that. Don't say, why aren't you famous? Listen to all the things that we've talked about in this interview. She's playing for a fourth time at the bitter end of New York City later this year. She's played multiple times. At the NAMM Show, and we didn't even talk about it, she played at the House of Blues in Anaheim while she was out there. She played at the Hard Rock here in Tampa. She's playing regularly. She's releasing original music. So don't say that. Even if you're not going to come and see Frankie, if you live in Dallas, if you live in St. Louis, if you live in Seattle, don't go up to a musician and say, why aren't you famous? You're really good. That's a backhanded compliment.
But I won't get mad if you do that.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Yeah.
This was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that we got to do this on
Me
video.
too. I know.
This time.
I'm like still looking at like, where do I look? Like, I'll just look at Bruce because I don't know which camera to look at.
Not surprisingly, I also have to let you go because you have a gig tonight, of course.
I do, yeah.
But this was wonderful. Thanks for making time to come by and do this.
Thanks for having me. Thanks to everyone for listening.
My pleasure. Audience, with that, I will wrap up another new episode of Now Hear This Entertainment. My sincere thanks to singer, songwriter, guitar player Frankie Raye. Do visit her official website at frankieraye.com. Again, I will have a link to it on the show page for this episode on my podcast website, NHTE.net. You heard her talking about the new song that she is working on. Frankie's original music is available via streaming platforms and online digital retailers. Look for links for Apple Music and Spotify on the homepage of frankieraye.com, where you will also see links, logos for social media. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and X. For that matter, tell you heard her and her music on Now Hear This Entertainment. You heard her talk about her vlog series called Songwriter Diaries. Use the YouTube link, the logo, on FrankieRaye.com to go subscribe to her channel and watch those videos. Be sure to tap or click into the live shows schedule on her website to see where and when you can go see Frankie perform live. That's going to do it for episode 595. Thanks ever so much for listening or watching. I'll send you out today with another song from Frankie Raye. This is the one she just talked about. It's called Foot in Mouth.
Any minute now I'll make it weird, put my foot in my mouth. That's how it always works out. And any minute now you'll pull away, misinterpret what I say. I never say anything right, and I feel the blank stare, so I tell myself that I don't care. I mean, what good does it do? In what am I trying to prove? I ask myself, is it worth it to sit around waiting for it though? Is it all a show? And everybody asks me where I'm going next. I'd have a plan if I could only find my head. But what's so wrong with staying here instead? Hustle through the races with nothing to show. My tired eyes look desperate. I know, is this all to get ahead of a charade? A song and dance to forget the plans I made. I feel like I'm always on trial here, justifying what's never clear. I mean, what good does that do? In what am I trying to prove? So I'll just paint on my happy face and clown around, waiting for who knows, putting on a show. I'll never have to wonder where I'm going next, 'cause I'd say anywhere's just as good as here. And maybe, just maybe, Mr. Ghetto will appear. Ooh, yeah, sure, it'll all work out. Ooh, yeah, sure, the light, the tunnel, the yada yada yada. Yeah, sure, slow and steady wins the race. But I mean, what's so wrong with winning second place? Any minute now I'll make it weird, put my foot in my mouth. That's how it always works out. I ask myself, is it worth it to sit around waiting for it though? Is it all a show? Just live your life, you never know. And everybody asks me where I'm going next. I'd have a plan if I could only find my head. Have a plan if I only find my head. But what's so wrong with staying here instead?